Joining us now, Uncle B in Studio B for his weekly throwdown with the BYU Sports Nation team. Nope, not
What's
physically,
up,
just mentally.
Hey, boys.
You got the gray memo. Good.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, welcome, my friend.
But I wanted to keep some blue, so I have a tiny bit.
Okay.
Just a tiny bit. Is that blue?
It's black.
No, it isn't. Is it black?
Yeah.
Blaine,
I think it's navy.
It's really dark blue. You're right.
Okay.
But you're colorblind, so I don't give
No,
you
I know. I asked Brenda. I said to Brenda, can you give me a little bit of blue? She gave me a tiny blue penguin. Just to keep it real. Just a tiny blue penguin.
repping in Studio B. Blaine, right now, 4 days now for BYU basketball before they face San Diego in the opening round of the West Coast Conference Basketball Championships, presented by Gorilla Glue.
Gonzaga Invitational.
Sorry. What's your confidence level going into the aforementioned tournament?
It's not as high as it was 3 weeks ago because of kind of how they floundered down the stretch a little bit. But I do think the rest will be good for them mentally and physically. And I do think that with all that's going on at USD right now, that the matchup in the first round is a good one for them. With that tie for fourth, I think this is the best possible matchup for them, honestly. And so I think they can gain some confidence in that game and be okay. So I'm not where I was, but I'm feeling like if they can come out and play extremely well in the opener for them, that they can gain some confidence and there's a chance they could get to that championship game.
Here's a fact that stinks. San Diego, the last 5 years, hasn't won a game in the West Coast Conference Tournament. Do you know who their last win is against?
BYU.
The Brigham in 2013 in the quarterfinals. Now it's different, though. Like you said, the Lamont Smith news affects the game. How does it affect the game, in your opinion?
It can't be anything but negative. And there's some things that happen. A player gets hurt or something happens, and you go, hey, they're going to rally around it. This isn't something you rally around. And so I think they go into practice this week. I think it's a huge distraction for them, which is a shame. It's a terrible shame. I mean, we were just down there last week. This is a program that I think was making steps, and players were bought in, and then something like this happens, and it's a big step backward, I'm afraid. And I don't like it. I don't like that BYU gets them. I'd like to see BYU playing without any distractions because I think they beat them straight up. Especially because I think they're going to be motivated and they're going to have their attention because of what happened when they were down there. And second game of a road swing, Spencer, you and I were down there, and it was interesting because we were talking to the Pepperdine staff, and we were going, what's going on? Why does BYU struggle down here? And it was interesting because they said, well, think about this. You come in here into our home, and BYU's fans outnumber the home fans 3 or 4 to 1.
I have a name for this. It's Mormon settlement theory.
And so what happens is these guys go, are you kidding me? Like, we're an away team on our home court. So they play with a chip on their shoulders. Now, you can say that Gonzaga has a target on their back, or St. Mary's has a target on their back when they come in there. But St. Mary's doesn't bring 3 or 4 to 1 fans into their home building.
Truth.
And so BYU gets an effort that is a no, you are not coming into my house with all of your fans. And so they play out of their minds against BYU. That's a fact. And then BYU, in the second game of that road trip, they made bad decisions down the stretch. And I think mentally they took a step backward in that game. Call it mental fatigue, whatever you want, but they didn't play well. I think they fixed that going in. So I felt like this matchup was a good one. The revenge factor, the fact that it was on a neutral floor and they would have their attention, and BYU would probably, with a week of practice, make better decisions and revert back to some of the good things they were doing. So I hate to see this distraction of Lamont Smith and all that, because you want to play teams at their best and beat them at their best. I think BYU is going to win this one either way, but now I think it tilts it even more in BYU's favor.
Notwithstanding the Lamont Smith situation and them having to bring in an assistant coach to now take over for the rest of the postseason, what adjustments would you make if you were on the BYU basketball coaching staff, given what you saw with me in San Diego when they lost, speaking of BYU, by 13?
Well, there's two things. There's one on the defensive side. They had trouble, again, keeping University of San Diego's guards in front of them. And then when you have that problem and they turn the corner, you got to do a better job with your communication and your rotations defensively. So the help has to get there faster. Then you got to recover to the shooters. I thought BYU was a step late on everything in that game, especially in the second half. And so I think it's a great opportunity to look at film and go, guys, what are we doing? There have been games this year where we've been really solid in this area. So this isn't a physically can't do. This is a mentally, take a look at this, guys. we can be better defensively is what Dave Rose has to be saying to him. And they can be. And so stay in front of just sometimes a half a second longer in front of the ball, the dribbler, makes a difference, because then that half a second allows the secondary help to get there and be in a position to take charges, to stop the drive, and they just didn't do that. So that's the first thing is important, is better and crisper rotations. The second thing is if it ends up being a tight ball game, they made really bad decisions. So the wrong guys shooting the wrong shot at the wrong time down the stretch. And in games that BYU's lost, that's been a problem. So they need to revert back to where they go, I'm going to make an extra pass because I'm going to pass up an okay shot for a better shot, for a good shot or a great shot. That's the mentality they have to have in this whole tournament, is share the basketball, one more pass makes the difference. And we'll see their shooting percentage come up if they do that. And we've seen them at times this year where they've looked really efficient offensively. And then times when they reverted and you go, wait a minute, why are they shooting that shot with 19 seconds left on the shot clock when they don't have to shoot that shot? And so I think those are the two things that they've got to really take a look at this week and buckle down on in the tournament. And if they do, they can play with anybody.
With that said, should BYU beat San Diego, they could match up with St. Mary's in the semis. If you get through that, Gonzaga, potentially. Well, it's going to happen. In the past couple of years, we've at least had a game or two or three where we've said, okay, if BYU plays like that, they got a shot, right? Have we seen a game like that this year where we go, hey, BYU could beat St. Mary's and St. Mary's could beat Gonzaga?
St. Mary's the first time, the overtime game, where St. Mary's veteran leadership won the game in overtime, right? So BYU played toe-to-toe, had a perfect game plan for them.
BYU led 38 minutes of regulation.
So that's the game, a game they lost, I'm pointing to, right?
And that was 2 months ago.
Because they played so well. But then they got into overtime, and St. Mary's looked like a veteran team, where St. Mary's said, yep, we know exactly who's supposed to get a shot right now and where it's supposed to come from. And we're going to execute, and we're going to take great shots, and we're going to shoot a ridiculous percentage in overtime. And BYU got into overtime, and the pressure of new faces, new offense, all of that, the right guys didn't take shots. So back to what we just talked about against whoever they're playing in this tournament, they should be so much further along right now that if they can play the way they played against St. Mary's and get the game close, hopefully this week off has them evaluate who's supposed to get this shot and where on the floor when we're in a tight ball game. So to me, I point to that game. If they can play like that, they can get to the championship game. Now, a month ago, if you would have said, who would you rather play in the semis, I would have said Gonzaga. No way now. Now I would much rather play St. Mary's than.
I want to play neither. That
can't
other
happen.
Teams upset some fools here?
Well, Pacific, in my mind, on the other side of the bracket, has the best shot because of the way their guards play. If their guards are hot and knocking, you guys talked earlier about Gallinet, their guards are good, guys. I mean, really, really good. And I get to see guards in the Atlantic 10. I get to see guards in the Mountain West. When their guards are on, they're as good as anybody in those leagues. And so they got to be making shots, and they play on attack and so aggressive. If they get the right officiating crew that lets them lower their shoulder and go, that's the one team, I think, in this tournament that can cause some problems. Now, I think San Francisco is also a dangerous team when they're knocking down shots. Remember, they beat Nevada early when they knocked down 15 threes. The problem is those two play each other. Right? Don't they?
Yeah, they do.
So
San Francisco, Pacific.
Yeah. So the two teams that I think are the greatest upset possibilities are on the same side of the bracket.
They needed to be on BYU side to play St. Mary's.
Right. And so I think the Pacific has the best shot. Now, having said that, San Francisco can get really, really hot and beat them in that first round game.
Hey, when Ferrari starts cruising.
When Frankie gets out, when he starts.
When Frankie Ferrari gets going.
When Frankie Ferrari puts the pedal to the metal, forget about it. Right? And so those are two teams that I think are teams that can get hot and beat people in any given game, but now they play each other in the first round. That's a shame, right?
Yeah. Do you see anything but Gonzaga St. Mary's in the final right now?
No.
I don't either. Of all the years, BYU goes 0 against those two.
Right.
There is some parity, but the parity's 4 through 6, 4 through 7, right?
And so BYU, can they beat St. Mary's in the semis? They have a chance. They showed that they have a chance. But that's a long shot because they have to play well. Because what St. Mary's doesn't do, they don't do stupid things. They may have a night when they don't shoot it well, and then they lock down on D.
St. Mary's obeys the honor code on the court, if you will.
Unbelievable. They don't take bad shots. So they're unbelievably well coached, and they execute at a really, really high level. So BYU, to beat them, has to shoot it extremely well, and they've got to match their execution. I actually like the matchup against them better than I do against Gonzaga right now because Gonzaga,
That one's fresh.
that's a starless team. Well, let me take that back. That's a team with 5 stars.
Yeah.
And they don't care who gets the glory. And nobody's considering
program
anybody
gets
there
the
for
glory.
player of the year.
They just want to win, man.
Williams 13.5, Perkins 13.0, Tilly 12.4, Norville 11.8, and Hachimura at 11.4. Come on.
This could have been BYU with Eric Mika and Nick Emery.
They don't have anybody in the top 8 in scoring. They got guys that are all from 9 to 22.
Oh.
So what do you do? You know, and they're playing with so much confidence, and they don't care who gets the glory. And Mark Few, this may be his best coaching job I've seen in 10 years. It's a phenomenal job by Mark Few this year.
Should be the coach of the year.
Yeah, I agree.
Should be the coach. Of the
I think
He will be the coach of the year.
yeah, and you know what? I know you guys talked a lot about them. You got to put him right up there with coaches all around the country. I know Mike Krzyzewski with all of his, but who's done a better job than Mark Few over the last 10 years?
Number 1 in active winning percentage among all coaches. He's at Gonzaga, so like the Final Four is maybe a stretch. They finally got
They
one.
go to the championship
The big
game last
hit
year.
on him was they can't get to the Final Four. Check, they did it.
Well, and then they lose.
now what?
Now they lose Collins in the first round. They lose Goss, and everybody goes rebuild year. St. Mary's has everybody coming back. And what do? They're ranked number 6 in the country.
They went outright.
So
Incredible.
let's
I bought in. I bought in.
Let's
hard to St.
recognize
Mary's.
what
not worthy.
an unbelievable job that he has done over time, and this year a phenomenal job. So we're in this conference, and how good is Dave Rose? Like
Really
he
good.
never doesn't win 20 games.
Really good.
And the bar is set so high that people take that for granted.
Absolutely, they
You
do.
got to put Dave Rose up there with what he's done over time. He's done a phenomenal job. And then what Mark Few has, that we're so close to it, we forget. Mark Few is an elite coach, top 5 in the country,
Yes.
period.
Amen.
Blaine, you brought the heat today, man.
All right, boys. We're heading to Vegas.
Party in Vegas Thursday.
Let's get it ready to roll.
Yeah.
Just bring the navy blue penguin with you, okay?
I'll bring him because I got to have some blue in all of my clothing.
Uncle B, bring in the heat.